Greetings. Back again. Let's get out of here. What do you say? Let's get out of the matrix. It's rearing its ugly head. What am I talking about? What's this crazy guy saying today? The guy that believes the world out there isn't there. You know, he thinks that, you know, all persons, conditions of matter and qualities of good and evil are just thoughts and there's nothing actually out there. What's that guy got to say to us today? Well, you're going to find out. You're about to hear about it, that's for sure. You're going to stick around for it. You know, you can go plug back into the matrix at any time. You're welcome to do that. But look, it's more real than you know. You can't even see the truth in plain sight. You're so hypnotized that if you don't do this work consciously, in other words, I make these videos, usually they're quite lengthy because you need that time to even touch the hem of the garment so you can escape this brooding viper that's been chasing around and lurking in the shadows, sucking you into its reach constantly. The human carnal mind that operates through all these hosts that you call people out here in this matrix, yes, it's a matrix, is looking to bind you. It is Satan binding you, constantly bind you. It comes through some aggressive personality. Somebody says something offensive to you. See, it comes to you that way. Or it comes to you through some unmet expectation. You can't pay a bill, or somebody else can't pay you, or, you know, or somebody's chasing or pursuing you, or somebody's causing you trouble. Oh, okay. One way or the other. You let it in. You let it in. Because you are the rich man in the Bible that I was just talking about on my TikTok video that can't enter the kingdom of heaven. Because you think, because your riches are of this world, you think that you exist in this world. You think there's life in this world. You think that there's substance to gain pleasure in this world. And every time that you touch the kingdom, if even for a brief moment, the taste of that hunt makes you want more and more and more. So if you can even touch the kingdom just for a brief moment in these videos that I make for you, you get a glimpse of God's good pleasure. You'll recognize that nothing can replace it. Nothing. Because you're not of this world. Just like in the movie The Matrix. You know, they're walking through the simulation. That is the exact thing that's happening to you right now. Why did they make that movie? To put it in plain sight. They made the movie to put it in plain sight so you wouldn't believe it, so that your unconscious wouldn't snap out and say, wait, this is a matrix, it's not even real. But the fact that they showed it to you in a movie is how they keep you from believing that it's true. That's why everything's put in plain sight, because your mind will disregard it and latch on to the bullshit truth, which is always the false narrative. Okay? I called it the bullshit truth because it's what all the truthers are doing. It's a bullshit truth. They're not telling you anything. They're telling you of the other side of the same coin. But it still puts you back in the matrix. You see, in order to escape the matrix, you have to know that there is no matrix. In order to escape the realm of confusion that you think your way through all day, every day, you have to grasp the idea that God is running a perfect universe. And there was nothing ever created to interfere with that. Not even you. You weren't even created to interfere with that. You've been living through an avatar self, through a false fictional identity, born in time and space, of illusion of flesh, and you walk around believing that it has some substance that it's going to preserve called life. And you know for a fact that you're going to die in that realm. but you just hope it's not today. You see how crazy you think I am, and in turn, it's actually you that's crazy? It's the irony of it. For one who has found the kingdom no longer requires anything or anyone else, because he who has found himself recognizes that the world is not worthy of him. That's what it says in the Nag Hammadi library. I didn't say that. You were about to say, look at how arrogant he is. No. That's what it says in the ancient scripts. I just happen to prove it by putting it to the test. And that's why I speak to you from this realm. That's why I have conviction in my voice. So what are we to do? What are we to do even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of the dead? Because that's what you are doing. Psalm 23, Psalm 91, the Psalms for help. 911, the help call. Counterfeit version of that is in the world, 911, dial it. Yeah, well, in the real world of spirit, the Bible has told you Psalm 91 verse 1 is that cry for help. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. Okay, I've been talking this whole transmission about dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. That's where I'm speaking to you from. That's where I'm reaching you in thought. That's what you're getting out of these transmissions. It's not a logical thinking person's game. If you could think your way to the kingdom, then the best and most astute thinkers on this planet wouldn't be absolute idiots, but they are. Now that'll sink in. That'll sink in later for those that think that they're pretty important and intelligent. They'll recognize how even the best of their works couldn't even come close to what would be called a perfect universe. In fact, the more they think about it, the less perfect it becomes. And that's what I'm talking about. That's why they're idiots. Because the more that they think about it, the less perfect it becomes. And so they're going further away from the principle. And that's why they're stupid. That's why you have to remain in your innocence and be childlike in your faith and in your attitude toward life. You have to be humble, not arrogant and haughty with all of the intellectual stupidity of this world. All of it will be undone in short order in no time at all. It's like trying to accumulate water in a bucket with holes in it. That's what you're doing with all of your intellectual, arrogant acumen of this world. That's all it is. It's vanity. Vanity in the sight of God. Because God's already running a perfect universe. And in the absence of human thought, divine thought is. Government is held by God alone. God is governing his perfect universe. There was no other substitute ever created. But in the five human senses, through the shadow fiction, you look at all of these things that you call government, which happens to be a human idea, okay, and it artifices itself, because it's an artifice, into the structure, the form, the fashion form of ignorance. It's ignorant of its own deception. In the fact that in the absence of what you would want to call self-governance, the self is already governing itself, void of anything known outside of itself. So I'm trying to get you to that place. So you stop trying to govern your affairs from the realm of how imperfect everything is. Because that's all your earthly intelligence is going to tell you, is how imperfect everything is. And that's the battle cry of the human reasoning mind. which is why it's called the devil in the ancient scripts. And that human reasoning mind is what is called the carnal mind that is lurking in the shadows and pursuing you in ignorance. And therefore, since it is nothing, has nothing, and doesn't have a cause to come into being other than if you put it in your thought, it's a shadow. You bring it to life through thought. Why would you pay any attention to any of it? In fact, when you leave all persons, conditions of matter, and qualities of good and evil out of your thought, full circle, you have a chance. You have a chance to touch the kingdom. Maybe for the very first time in a long time. But it'll be the very first time every time. And those that solve that riddle in the spiritual healing practitioner training understand exactly what I mean. How can you touch the hem of his garment the first time every time? It's to recognize that you never left. Therefore, there could only be one time. You see, there can only be one power. There can only be one creator. There can only be one cause, one governance. And to behold that in your awareness as you walk around all the dead statues of this empty carcass that flesh calls itself home to, taking your cares and concerns off. What's going to happen even a moment from now? Because it's not yours to govern. Life is already running a perfect universe and looking for anyone to submit and be ordained and then orchestrate its affairs through you accordingly. You become a priest in the order of Melchizedek because you are in the recognition that I and my Father are one. Therefore, who could I be other than Christ alone? Because God only had one Son, Christ. God only lives and God never dies. Therefore, life is the principle. And life is governing and sustaining itself because it is one unit, one living principle. And so it doesn't divide itself into two or more characters or players. And therefore, whenever you do that in thought, you've stepped away from your principle, and therefore you're in the dark, in the shadows, in the human world. All right, enough of the foreplay. Let's make love, spiritually speaking. Seriously, look at this. This isn't an illusion. This is where I am. All right, now get this. I'm going to give you the best kept law of attraction secret that nobody was ever willing to tell you. Stay out of desire. You can't do it because you get all excited. You want it. Whenever you come into desire, you come into want. And to want something is to lack it. Therefore, you're pushing lack and sending it away. Stop. I'm going to give you the best law of attraction secret that nobody ever had the cojones to tell you. Stop desiring something. To desire means you lack it, you're wanting it, you're pushing it away. Stay out of that vibration. All right, did you see that little TikTok insert I just put in there? A little 11-second clip for you? You know, it's funny that you can learn things in 11 seconds that take you an hour to learn. However, you're not here to learn intellectually. That's the point. You're watching the longer videos so that you can gain the consciousness of being in the kingdom with me right now. All right? So before we go forward and we go into the kingdom, let's do a meditation. Take a deep breath in. I'm going to wire you for happiness. Let it out. Go into a ball of white light in your heart center. Go down through your feet. Go down into the earth and gather up the core grounding energies of the earth. Bring yourself back up in this ball of white light, up and out the top of your head. Go through the clouds, go through the dark and the light and the dark and the light, and go through a thick jelly-like substance called the laws, and just rest right here. I'm going to wire you for that. You don't have to do anything. There you go. Enjoy. All right, now that you're in that brain state, let's walk in the realm of the miraculous. Whenever you want something, it means you lack it. Seeking for your own desire is the same behavior that a child does when they really want something and then they get upset with you the next moment and then they say, well, you're never going to get it for me anyway. That's what you're saying to the universe like a little child. You're like, well, you're never going to get it for me anyway. That's what it means when you want for something. You're saying to the universe, you always say you're going to and you never do. Okay, well, that attitude, how does that work for a parent? It doesn't. Now, instead, we come into the place of peace, love, and joy. And as we come into the place of peace, love, and joy, what happens then is that we transcend. We transcend out of the dream I've been talking about. Look, God's kingdom, these are qualities of being. We're reflecting upon qualities of being like the light is reflecting on the water here. Reflection. Peace, love, joy, kindness, gentleness, meekness, temperance, faith, goodness. Peace, love, and joy. Those three things. Those three things will bring you into enlightenment. You have to radiate this out of your heart. And the only way you can do that is if you drop all persons, conditions of matter, and qualities of good and evil that you're ascribing to this world and stop falling asleep drunk in it. You have to be so present to the present that you can radiate and reflect those heavenly virtues. Those heavenly virtues are heaven on earth right here and right now. That's why they're at hand. You reflect them and you raise your vibration out of suffering. Suffering is the state of desire. So when you want something and you say, oh, I've got to make it happen, I got to do it, it's just, I'm going to give all my effort to it, I'm going to crush it today. You're doing the opposite of what you want. You're saying to the universe, well, you're never going to give it to me anyway, so I'm just going to sit here and kick my feet all day. Take your hand and go grasp water, okay? It'll scatter. The attitude of grasping is the lust of the flesh. It's the attitude of grasping. And what are you grasping? You're grabbing something that doesn't exist. You're trying to grab onto a life that doesn't ever happen. That happening stance life that you're trying to make more of is a belief that there's God and somebody or something else. There is nothing else. You get into the reflection of God. And as you get into the reflection of God, it starts to pour into your experience. Can't you see that this is the truth? The only way to know is to demonstrate through willingness. So instead today of saying, well, I want this and this and this and this and this, so I'm going to use my human will to go do this and this and this, who would you be being in the absence of your human will as it relates to reflecting peace, love, and joy? Good question. Who would you be being in the absence of your human will? That means all your to-do list. Okay, just put it aside for a minute. Just set it aside for just a moment. Okay? Who would you be in that moment as you set it aside? All the things you think ought to get done today, just mentally think of them. Now go ahead, set those aside too, just for this moment. Not for all time, just for this moment. Who would you be being? You would be resting in peace, dead to the world and alive in spirit. Because you removed the grasping hand, and now you're just like this, where all the water can just lay on top and you can lift it right out and hold all the water you want in this hand. The water will fill your hand. Hand implies power in the Bible. I mean this quite literally. I'm really sharing divine secrets to you that you will hear nowhere else because they're coming to you in real time from an ascended state. Listen to me closely. Hand implies power. Human power grasps at the things of life. Water represents thought. So human power grasps at its thoughts, trying to preserve life that doesn't exist, which means a separate beingness outside of God's allness. Trying to fix a problem where none exists is what I'm saying. That attitude of grasping is the misuse of human will. The proper use of human will is to align yourself with divine truth. Now, this hand that's open in surrendered position is saying, I will put up no opposing human reasoning, and I will allow for the water, the current of divine thought, to flow into my power supply freely. See? Oh, that was so good. If you only knew how good this stuff was. You can't know until you demonstrate. I can only say, that's what you're looking for over there, not over there. And then, you can fight back like most people do, and they can be like, oh, what does he know? Just a guy with a baseball cap, thinks he knows everything, so arrogant, projecting their arrogance onto me. I'm nothing. I'm a vessel. I tap into divine consciousness. Always have. Now, it's up to you to recognize that you, too, are divine consciousness. And to take one thought in defiance to that, that's the attitude of disobedience. And if you're going to be disobedient in this way, then I got another news flash for you. You're disobedient in every way that God's trying to bless you. Because through the folly of a minister, God sends his man to preach. And whether or not you choose to receive that, well, what else can a God do that's given you free will? God's given you free will to say, hey, do you want to come home now? Anytime you're ready, I'm like totally good with it. And you're like, well, you're never going to give it to me anyway. And kicking your feet in the sand like, you always say you're good, but you never show up. And God's just sitting there looking at you like, boy, I sure do love that one there. I suppose I'm going to have to let him sit in his stuff for a minute to realize that it doesn't work out. 45 years later, you're never going to do it for me, God. You're never going to do it for me, God. Well, good thing that, God doesn't operate on your timing, because in this lifetime, you might run out of, these years. Unless you realize that there is no time and that there is no substance out there and that all it is God, and all you have to do is yield to it, and all you have to do is say, yes, Father, I am the reflection of you. And if I get into alignment with that reflection, if I match that reflection, right? Imagine if my reflection here was like going like this, like, hey, there I am, look at me. Hey, what's it you're doing? But no, you snap back in, you say, no, God's peace, so therefore I'm peace. I will not be moved off my peace today. I will take all my thoughts about what I think I see out there out of it. And I'll remove my human grasping at the water, at the thoughts that are coming to me in so-called fashion form. And I'll simply open my hand and I'll say, God, I know in the absence of human thought, divine thought is reflecting itself in the perfect universe that God created, and I'm part of that perfect universe, and I'm ready to experience it now. And now you're like the kid in the car, and he says, I'm sorry, Dad. I know I threw a temper tantrum for the last 5 decades, but I think I'm done now. And then the dad says, I love you, son. Always have, always will, never left you. Sat right here the whole time, just loving you. And then you two give each other a hug, and then you go about your business, have some ice cream, and the day is like the best day ever, okay? Well, that's the rest of your life if you get the lesson, okay? That's how this plays out. Newsflash, that's what's gonna happen. Because that's what the whole Bible says. Not because I said so, because the whole Bible says so. And I believe every word in that Bible, and you, well, don't have to believe every word, but the ones that you do choose to believe, those are the promises that you unlock. So you can unlock these little cheat codes as you go along, and you can say, okay, the matrix sucks. I don't want to come back again. It's really kind of shitty. And, it's got some strife in it because, well, that's the law that governs it. It's governed by the law of strife, by the way. But there's this weird idea that this nut job walking along the beach in this really beautiful place, by the way. He was telling me the world isn't there and that it's an illusion, and that I should believe the movie The Matrix more than I suspect, and I really should stop putting myself in the equation. I should really kick back and just reflect peace, love, and joy, and just forget about all ideas of objects in time and space, because they're not even there. They're just the movement of thought within me, and the outer world is just my extended body. And so all this is just one substance perfecting itself through the purification of the fire called wisdom. And therefore I can open my hands at any time, and I can allow for divine thought to flow into my life and correct the outer, because it's all thought anyway. And once the divine thought reaches the imperfected thought, well, the Christ has made himself known to me. There it is, boom. How do you like that? Do I need to say any more? I don't think I do. I think we're good.